Hello, and welcome to this podcast on adapting to uncertainty and change. I'm recording this from lockdown, so please excuse any background noise, as clearly I don't have a particularly sophisticated studio here. So, this podcast is intended to run alongside the resources I've pulled together for you. There's a PowerPoint presentation on adapting to uncertainty and change, along with some handouts in areas such as dealing with uncertainty, resilience, the manifestations of stress, and so on. I know that a few handouts can't possibly be the answer at this unprecedented time of COVID-19, the challenges it is presenting, and the associated uncertainty and stress you may be feeling. However, I hope you'll find a few useful tips and techniques which you can try to make things feel a little less stressful for you. Or you might feel reassured to know that what you're currently doing to help yourself through this is good practice. So before we start on some questions, I thought I'd give you a little bit of background about me. So hi, I'm Julie McDonald, Director of People Solutions at White Cube Consulting, a small consultancy based in Aberdeen. We support organisations with HR, recruitment and selection, and training and development. I've been a psychologist now for 35 years. Initially, I worked in the education sector as an educational psychologist, working with children and young people and their parents with a range of difficulties from specific learning difficulties to language difficulties and behavioural challenges. For the past 17 years, I've worked with organisations large and small and in a variety of sectors. I support businesses with their people. So I do everything from developing and running training courses on areas like people management or assertiveness skills, or giving feedback and having difficult conversations, or how to make effective decisions. I also coach people with workplace challenges and am accredited to use a number of behavioural and personality profiles which can help with recruitment decisions, individual development and leadership and management development. Like most people, my life has had high points and low points, so I know from personal experience the stress that uncertainty and change can bring. I've gone through bereavement, redundancy, divorce. I've moved house many times. I've lived in different countries. So I understand how challenging life can be at times. My daughter is also a junior doctor, currently working in hospital, so at a personal level I'm aware of some of the stresses you're facing. What I have learned is generally people are more resilient and able to cope than they realise, and that human beings have a capacity for adapting and assimilating to even the most challenging situations. And in fact, the more uncertainty and change we have dealt with in the past, the more effective we tend to be at managing in the future. So challenging circumstances can sometimes give us an opportunity to learn about ourselves and to be able to use this to help in the future. So before I go on to answer a few questions on the topics of uncertainty, stress, resilience, fatigue and mental well-being, I'd just like to say thank you so much for everything you and your colleagues are doing right now. It is hugely appreciated. Now to the questions. First, let's talk about uncertainty.
There have been a lot of changes around me, and many things seem uncertain. Where and how do I start dealing with what is unknown?
Our world is filled with uncertainty. Uncertainty of the future can obviously make us feel anxious and insecure. It may mean people try to avoid situations they find stressful. It can make some people freeze, or it can make them overreact to unfamiliar, threatening occasions. On the positive side, uncertainty can actually keep people alert and inspire them to prepare for challenges and to be careful when they're in unfamiliar situations. However, this is a particularly challenging time. So many major changes in such a short time. And generally speaking, people prefer the known to the unknown. So it is completely normal that many of us may be feeling a little adrift just now and be worrying about the present and the future. How long will this current situation last? What will the longer term effects be on me and my loved ones? Will life ever get back to normal? It's completely understandable to worry about these things. Problems really only arise if our worry becomes overwhelming or means we can't cope with our daily lives. So our real task here is to take care of and protect ourselves so we can weather these next few weeks and months until life resumes a pattern which is more familiar and comforting. So I think the first step in dealing with the current situation may be to identify what you do know. So, what facts and data do you have? What does research, statistics and evidence from other countries tell you? How can you use this to reduce some of the areas of uncertainty? Sometimes actually writing things down can help to clarify areas of uncertainty or to bring more into focus things which are actually uncertain. Also, make sure you don't confuse the two concepts of possibility and probability. Obviously, possibility refers to the fact that certain events can take place, regardless of how slim the chances really are. Probability, as you know, of course, on the other hand, refers to the likelihood that a certain event may occur beyond pure chance. So, for example, it's quite possible that while flying in a plane, it could collide into another plane or crash on landing. However, the chances of this happening, of course, are very slight. It could happen, but it probably won't. So sometimes you need to make the distinction between legitimate concerns and appropriate worries and those that are unrealistic and irrational. So try to avoid predicting that something will happen just because you're uncertain. Also, make a distinction between productive worry, which helps you to plan or motivate yourself, and non-productive worry, which mainly serves to make you miserable. When you worry needlessly, you overestimate the threat or risks associated with uncertainty, and you sometimes underestimate your resources for handling it. Try your best to stay calm and don't openly speculate endlessly on anxiety-producing events. Ask yourself, is there really anything to worry about? And if so, if your worry will be helpful in any realistic way. Over 95% of what we actually worry about tends not to happen.
How might acknowledging and accepting uncertainty help me?
So, I think the first step in beginning to adapt to a difficult time is to accept that things have changed. I know this can be tough, but it uses up huge amounts of physical and emotional energy railing against things you can't change and fretting about things you can't control. You can only change things over which you have a degree of control, or if you can somehow influence events. I find often when we feel most frustrated or helpless, it's where we feel we have neither control nor the ability to influence what happens. Let me give you a little tool that you might be able to use. If you can imagine a set of 3 concentric circles, the inner circle is control, i.e., what can I do? What can I change? What can I act upon to make a difference to how things are? So one strategy is to accept that there are some elements of the current situation that you can control. So what are those things? For example, you might think about little things from making your favourite food to doing some exercise, putting on an outfit that makes you feel better, talking to someone who understands, getting some more sleep, doing the best you can in your work role. Those are things you have some control over. The next circle is influence. So you ask yourself there, is there anything I can do to influence future outcomes? For example, can I talk to someone who has power to change things? Could I discuss with somebody else some of my worries and concerns, and together we might form a plan? Beyond that, in the outer of these concentric circles, lie all the things that are out with our control. It may help to visualise this model and mentally pin your worries or concerns in the correct circle. This might help you focus on what you can do to feel less helpless, rather than expending emotion on things you can't change.
I would like to find ways to help myself and or others deal with uncertainty. What tips or practical techniques might be helpful when dealing with uncertainty?
So from my experience, I know that things don't remain the same. Change is inevitable and constant. Some changes are pleasant or easy to deal with, whilst clearly others, including the current circumstances, are challenging, traumatic, and may well have lasting effects. One book I found particularly helpful is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. In this book, she talks about reprogramming the voices in our heads. These internal dialogues are where we either talk ourselves up and make ourselves feel better, or talk ourselves down and make ourselves worse or more anxious about things. She talks there about using positive phrases. One of the things that's helped me when I've been dealing with challenging things is the phrase, "This too shall pass." To remind yourself that time moves on and things get better can be a really positive affirmation. A second thing you might like to consider is writing a list, as we talked about earlier, of what you have control or influence over. And then pick just one or two of these things and work on them. So put some focus and effort into things you can actually change and manage, rather than sitting fretting about things that you can't deal with. A third idea is to realise it's normal to worry and to feel low points during uncertain times. Absolutely no one that I know is calm or upbeat all the time, even though some people may give that impression. So, give yourself permission to feel sad, frustrated, angry, or sorry for yourself. I think wallowing occasionally is normal and actually may be helpful. However, just try not to allow yourself to wallow for too long. So either set a time limit on it. I'm going to allow myself to sit here and feel sorry for myself for 10 minutes. And after that, I'm going to go for a run or I'm going to do something different. Or if you do just find yourself in a dip, notice that and make the choice to do something different with that time. Helplessness and frustration also comes from feeling that our choices have been taken away or reduced. And sadly, right now, in a way, that's a reality. We can't change that. It's true, we can't always choose what happens to us. But one thing we can choose is how we react and what we do in response to these changes. Sure, we can wallow and feel sorry for ourselves, or, as I said, we can go for a run, have a nice bath, read a book, watch TV, get absorbed in a hobby, or help somebody else. Reminding ourselves that we do still have choices we can make, despite challenging times, can give us back a degree of control.
It's taking time to adjust to changes. What can I do if I or someone I know is finding it difficult to adjust?
Adjusting to change is obviously a very personal thing. We all use different coping strategies and go through the different stages of change: denial, acceptance, adaptation and assimilation at our own pace. Adjusting to any change takes time. In my experience, adjusting to change usually takes longer than we might think. So, my first tip here is be kind to yourself. Don't expect to adapt in a few days or even weeks. Major change can take time. If you're struggling a bit, keep reminding yourself it's normal. There'll be good moments or days and times or days which are really difficult. Again here, you might use a positive affirmation to build a strong inner voice. Sing to yourself, I'm doing the best I can do, or I'm doing everything I can in this situation. May free you up a bit. In terms of helping someone else, just keep remembering that we all go through this at different times, so you might be further along the change curve than they are. So try to not get impatient with people, be empathetic, listen to them, and just try and help them where they might need your support. Also, don't compare yourself to others. Try not to feel bad if others seem to be doing better than you feel you are. You don't know what's going on in other people's lives or in their heads. They may well be struggling too, but choosing not to talk about it at this time. I'd also say if things are really challenging, spend more time talking to those people in your life who inject positivity and energy. Let's call them radiators, rather than people who suck the energy from you, feed those negative thoughts, and make you feel worse after a conversation with them. Let's call them the drains, because they can drain the energy from you. This does not mean to cull your friendship group. Just prioritise where you spend your time a little more carefully. And once we do come through a major change, and human beings do have the most amazing ability to come through extremely adverse circumstances and adapt to the new norm, it's not until we're through the change curve and we can actually look back with a little objectivity that we can really see the outcomes and what they actually are. And we can understand the impact, both positive and negative, of that period of change. I know in my life, my greatest learnings about myself and how resilient I actually have proved to be have come from the times I've had to deal with challenging circumstances rather than when life is just ticking along. So you may find when all this is over, you have learned some amazing things about yourselves.
Are there any other resources that may be of help?
Some people obviously find things like yoga, Pilates or meditation can help. And obviously you can download free apps or videos to help with these things. Again, some people choose to write their thoughts down each night or keep a journal. So I suppose by downloading at the end of the night, you free yourself up from carrying that with you on into your sleep. Others find it helpful to hang on to what is good and positive in the face of uncertainty or stress, and they like to jot down or even just remind themselves of one or two things they're grateful for that day. I suppose this switches our mind from focusing on the negative and challenging to remembering the positive.